And it's preparing the live stream. Sit tight.
Welcome all of you in YouTube land and those of you who are here for the open mic and to hear Kathleen Rooney and Dora Malech. I am looking forward to a wonderful evening tonight. So hello from me, Nina Corwin, and my co-host.
Yeah, hello from me, Al DeGenova. We're here together in some sort of TV land, but all really enjoying this kind of virtual poetry because we're able to talk to people from all around the country. So for those of you who haven't visited with us before, either virtually or live, Nina and I have been hosting this reading for a long time since we were in grammar school. And
Great.
And we usually start off. So Nina, did you want to start?
Sure, why not? You know, we were talking before you guys joined us about how old we were getting and not remembering when was the last time we might have read an older poem. But this poem, In Due Time, speaks to the future, and we definitely have the future before us. So, in due time. Dear future, call me a miserable speck of your past, but there are we're getting and not remembering when was the last time we might have read an old. What am I hearing? Kurt, was that a delay or something?
No, something leaked into the sound stream. I would suggest you continue reading. Just take it from the top.
All righty, in due time. Dear future, call me a miserable speck of your past, but there are throngs of us here. Some who mumble when they pray, some plotting data points, others who cast lots to see who will go first. Can you give us a hint? Dear future, day comes with its cross-haired sun, night with its carousel of stars, the shooters, the burned outs, the burning still. Is there any order to this? Even the chicken and egg disagree, or the chicken and egg agree to disagree. Our steps are bedeviled with questions. What will we be when we grow up? Will we walk through a door or fall off the edge? Dear future, I can see the bull in you snorting and kicking up dirt, an ant afraid to be stomped, and I worry. Like a farmer with a finger in the air, or parents checking car seats and nanny cams. I see rabbits swollen with brood and you in the breech, twisted cord around your neck. If I could, I'd send a midwife, but I haven't got your address. The future dearly wants to tell us economists are no better than weathermen. Too much growth saps the bones. There's an omen in every phenomenon. The edge is near. The future turns to Moses, holy, holy, but the prophet's tongue is tied. So it pulls Chicken Little aside to spread the word, but the bird thinks she's dreaming, so the warnings won't come out. Dear future, I hear you at the trough, gagging on our pig-eyed inventions, our noxious droppings. If I could, I'd fix you the feast you deserve. I would spare no expense on the latest vaccine, but there are no pennies to pick up. I'm sorry. At sunrise, we set out on a journey, aging as we go. Our caravan makes for that place where parallels meet. An old moon waves on a bridge of sighs. From the dash, a bass vibration comes, a ringtone of milk spilling. It's the future on the line. Thank you. All right, yeah, and we can do whatever. And now Al DeGenova, my co-host of since I was in elementary school.
So thank you, Nina. I'm going to read a brand new poem, and I was thinking of doing a holiday poem, but then I figured, no, let's not. And that's what the open mic is all about. It gives us a chance to try something new. This is called The Hand. We constructed from rubber bands, ground beef, galvanized nails, and iron bolts rusty from the beginning. We cover all these with a softness known only to our lovers. We allow scars and calluses that tell time, rub labels from jars and brush crumbs from our beard. It is an intimate friend, working all our secrets. We build in memory for saxophone fingerings, typing the alphabet and unclasping bras, her warm back. We know it will go our distance, well beyond the blue-black nails and the angry glass of smashed cocktails. It will crush a sprig of cedar in its palm, that delicate china bowl, offering us a fragrance from here to eternity. And that's that. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you for the virtual hand claps.
All right, so we're getting started with the open mic. Al, who should we start with?
Let's start with a new voice. Jessica Hudgens, you can begin.
Hi, I'm Jessica. I am Dora's student from when I was doing my MFA. I'm pulling up the poems I'm reading right now. So I'm going to read two poems. The first one is the only poem I wrote in 2020. But yeah, it was inspired by Mitski's song, Me and My Husband, because I listened to this song for so long and I was just like, what is this song about? And it's truly just about loving your spouse. I didn't, how? Okay. Okay. This is Love Want. Now I have to calm down, hang on. Love Want. When I was born, I was called a woman. Every day since, I learned that loving a man was the best thing to want. In this way, for a time, I escaped the true hell of saying how I felt. What growth occurred over the course of decades. My husband and I loved in the manner that suited us and that we could not change. We are now great friends. And this next poem is pretty unhinged, but I think in like a really quiet way. I really don't know why it's not published. It's like one of my favorites, but okay. Monologue. Welcome to my beautiful fortress in the woods. I have always dreamed of having someone like you, and there have only been one or two, to a place all mine and perfect my fortress is. Enter the cedar halls and pull the blinds closed and look at the moon, for my fortress has no roof, and in my dreams of us, it is always nighttime. This is not a dream. Right now, we look at the actual stars from our couch on the moss, and I pass you my water and you drink from the cup. I'm glad you've come, knowing as I do that it's a difficult trip. You are tall, taller than I remember, and more normal seeming, a normalness that is disarming and sly because it's yours. Days when you are not here, days unlike today. It's lucky I have my 2 dogs who came to me through the family, for one must have a reason or two to use the voice. And it's lucky also to have the spider webs and winter rains, because unpleasantness offers texture, small up and down movements to a day. If you asked me how I came to build my fortress, I'd say I felt called to it. But because I had you for audience, I'd concede the truth. Over the years, tools and materials were left. By being here, I received them. My feeling is, if a garden's there, water it. It's work, but up, up, up all the time would be too good to abide. This, I know, you understand. But here we are, in my beautiful fortress in the woods. I couldn't tell you how glad I am. Thank you. Thanks, Dora, for sending this along. Thanks, Nina. Thanks, everyone. I'm excited to see Jalen.
All right, so, and thank you for taking the #1 slot. Now we're ready for the rest. How about Jim Madigan? Jim, let's hear what you got.
Thank you, Nina. I'm going to read 2 poems, and they're both from a series that I'm doing that's in response to a book that came out in the mid-90s that's called How the Irish Became White. And it's about white privilege, although, well, we'll see. In it, the author, in one place, he says, only in a place like New York's notorious 5-point district that attracted the lower million of both races and sexes to its saloons, dance halls, and theaters, could have staged an event like the great 1844 dance contest between Irish champion Master John Diamond and the Negro William Henry Lane, known as Juba. So here's my response poem to it. Dance contest. The Nicholas brothers, Fayard and Harold, spring right out of the screen of stormy weather, dancing to Cab Calloway's Jump and Jive, twirling on tabletops, tapping to the trombones, arms raised for balance and for grace, doing splits, gliding across the floor. The crowd cheers, bets are placed. Spirited sounds of fiddles introduce the self-proclaimed Lord of the Dance, Michael Flatley. Hands on his hip, a smile curls on his lips. Toe, heel, toe, heel, toe, heel. Backup dancers are all lower body movements, but Michael uses his entire body, prancing across the stage. The crowd cheers, bets are placed. This contest has been replayed since 1844 in New York City, when Master John Diamond met Will Lane, known as Juba, memories of Africa in his feet. And the second comes from a phrase that he writes. Recently, a literary historian asked about Mark Twain's character Huck Finn. Was Huck black? But even if Huck's Irishness is pure fancy, it suggests a profound truth about America, that the national character embodied in the country's most beloved literary figure is part Irish as well as part Negro. And here's my response poem, Genealogy. Murphy, Kelly, Byrne, Ryan, O'Sullivan, Walsh, O'Neill, Finn. Finn, descendant of Finn Mac Cumhale. Fionn, who caught and ate the enchanted salmon of knowledge from whence all Irish poets draw inspiration. Finns settled County Sligo in the province of Connacht, a rocky limestone land, a coastline only fit for gulls. Some Finns joined Brennans, McGowans, and Feeneys to cross the Western Ocean on the journey to America. From New York City, made their way down the Ohio River to Kentucky, where the Finn patriarch was called Judge, and his boy we only know as Pap. Pap fled his father's wrath with Mary, an escaped slave, whom he cruelly loved, and who bore him Huckleberry. Mary died before Pap and Huck found a place in Missouri. Pap followed the way of Irish fathers, beating his boy and drinking. So father like son, Huck fled, teaming up with Jim, the mirror of his mother Mary, rafting up to Cairo, Illinois, promise of a new life, where a boy, both black and white, might be himself in these United States. Thank you.
Thank you, Jim. Thank you. So, who should be next on in our open mic? Caroline Johnson, are you ready?
Sure. Thank you. I enjoyed hearing that. I taught Huckleberry Finn before, so that was wonderful to hear. I'm also, I just wanted to say I bought Lillian Boxfish Takes a Walk. Is that right? I may have said it wrong, but I'm looking forward to reading Kathleen Rooney's book. Haven't read it yet, though. I haven't had time, working too hard. I'm going to read two poems. One of them's rather short. And the first one was actually, I recently found out it's going to be published in the Quakers Journal called Friends. And then the other one I wrote when I was in Madrid, the first draft of it, but then I changed it a little bit. So the first one is called The Garden of COVID. In your garden, getting lost in lilac coneflowers, mingling with the bees and hummers, your grin another bloom. I move out of the wilderness, tall as a sunflower, turn to talk to a stranger veiled with fear, the pandemic always near. I ache to see lipstick and balm, teeth smooth, white, chipped, stained, or even gapped, a nose Roman or crooked. I yearn for a bouquet of expression, see smiles not hidden by cloth, a native plant of spontaneous laughter growing in public soil. I think we all know what that's about. And then the second poem, like I said, I wrote this when I was in Madrid many years ago, and it's called At the Plaza del Carmen in Madrid. And I have an epigraph with references to the poem Songs by Federico Garcia Lorca, and as I'm sure most of you know, Lorca was a Spanish poet. The taxi drivers know the city by its plazas. They measure distance not in kilometers, but by cobblestone bricks, Habsburg kings and queens, Bourbon princes. They tear through Madrid with blood in their hearts, fuming the air as money dirties the city. And I am walking with olives in my pocket, dreaming about princes in Cordova. Hundreds of years ago, each plaza was a meeting place for auto de fe, the burning of the body during the Spanish Inquisition. So many paintings of martyred, tortured saints, including the suffering Christ. His Last Supper, the washing of feet by disciples and apostles, his crucifixion. I think of Lorca, his books burned in Granada's Plaza del Carmen, all banned in Franco's Spain. Lorca wrote about Cordova, far and lonely, before Franco's soldiers battered his body with rifled butts, then riddled it with bullets. To this day, nobody knows where his remains lie. So many pigeons line this plaza, strutting like common peasants, pecking at bread, pulling at crumbs from foreigners. And death is watching for me. Estoy llorando para ti, Federico. Like you, I'll never reach Cordova. Thank you.
All right. Nice stuff, Karen. And Jalen, let's hear from you. You ready?
Yeah, I'm ready. Thank you. Thank you, Nina. Thank you, Albert. Happy to be here. Thank you, Dora, for sending me the invitation. So I'm going to read two poems. And the first one is titled Snuff, which is a general term for smokeless tobacco, different kinds of smokeless tobacco. And my dad used chewing tobacco for most of my life growing up. So the poem's a bit about that. Snuff. My daddy packed a pinch of Skull Mint, sexier than most things I've seen women do. Once he offered me and my adolescent tongue a taste out of some old school parochial sense of education. Let the rod of experience thunder loud and profound where the lips might only whisper unintentional invitations. Like the clued in Junebug I heard alarm bells blaring behind my eyes, blind with admiration. I decided simply to watch and marvel at the way my daddy carried himself with so much swagger, the way he kept a Diet Pepsi bottle in his back pocket, stuffed with paper towels and dip spit, as cool as the coldest mink on the coat rack. I settled for a different red and black map of imitation, a can of Jack Link's beef chew. Fattened my lip with the finely ground meat and juice, slipped the faux snuff into the back pocket of my baseball pants with scandalous intent, as if it was the plastic foil O of a condom wrapper. Leaning into my little secret, the lead up to my big joke, my wry smile and reveal. My daddy's vice as beautiful as a well-made blade, the astringent mint making Jean's nicotine sing, setting the gums ablaze. He quit and unquit, and I learned what you can and can't make of a man. But one day, on the red clay of Black Miami, where the diamonds go mostly unused, I got bit by a wasp while feeling ground balls. My father took the wet contents of his bottom lip and pressed it to the bite, stemming the pain and swelling. I got to return to one of baseball's cherished rhythmic routines: catch, step, and pitch it to first. And the second poem is titled Flight to Portland, which is from, I guess, 2 years now, Portland, AWP in Portland. And I haven't been on a plane in a while, so I figured I'd read this poem and sort of, we can share my plane experience through this poem. Okay, Flight to Portland. We all have weak, uncontrollable bladders brutally boxed in on this Boeing Airbus. The head flight attendant is a whip of a man, tall and southern, his brisk walk only bested by the tempo of his tongue. His quick wit, I suspect, is both weapon and shield. From what, I wonder? The flitter in his voice when he says down makes an older gentleman chuckle and reminisce on a past lover. All of us on this full flight have named him, I'm sure. Boy Wonder, Rude Boy, Waylon, maybe. I'm a flight attendant. I've had it all, he says. Any other questions? Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. The poem about your father reminded me a little bit of Lee Young Lee's The Gift, even though they're not the same. It just made me go to that place. Very cool. Next, who should we call? How about Marlo Starr? Are you ready?
Jalen, that was amazing. It was so great to hear you read the Snuff poem. Yeah, thank you, Nina and Albert, for having us, and also thanks to Dora for sending the invite. So excited to hear you read. So I'm going to read two poems. This first one is very fresh. I wrote it today, because why not? This is called Leviathan. And at last you become the state, the room awash, a diptych, red and blue, your cube of 8 by 8, no windy prophets parting robes, no comic generalissimo ordering broken bottleneck executions, Drenched newspapers ink yesterday's headlines, face down into pavement. Every choir's dead, every bell's tongue split. There was no need to set libraries ablaze. The first sword, always already the first gate. In garden keeping, this was not our first expulsion. But as eyes adjust to the dark, it's easy to miss some bodies. Pharmacon, medicine and or poison, a root, a founding myth, or father seed, seeding the honorable fatherland. Dove and ark, his ships perched on the Chesapeake, masting shadows where the old lord never planted a satined foot. But here you, today, with your dim sense of maps and instinct for law, mindless thread the cobblestone streets, sloughing dust of coliseums. And then this next one is based on a true story. It's called Like Trees. At the bar, a man wants me to know, he writes, about existential things, like trees, or birds I offer, because I love to help. We part ways, him confused, me bored. I consider the conviviality of trees, their roots intermingling in a network of touch, somewhere outside the lyric eye. I dream of a less determined landscape than the body, but even the moon is militarized, a flag unfurled but unflapping in zero gravity. Time freezes and hurtles us back. My trouble is all I can't click shut. I'd spare you the details of the scurvy vision, where every healed wound springs open at once. But then you might wonder if the implied you is you, and we can't have that, reader. Subjectivity is difficult enough. Instead, I'll take you back to the scene. At the funeral, an uncle, impatient with our handfuls of dust, grabs the shovel to show us how it's done. The point is to make it final. He rains dirt down into the hole. To make it final is the point. Thank you.
Marlo, I truly envy and resent your ability to get such a good poem out of 24 hours. I just want you to know. Nice job. Very nice job. Well, I'm going to have our Hanukkah reading, which means having Susan Messer read something that she shared with us every year at about this time. Susan, let's hear it.
Thank you. Thank you. Yes, I always say Child's Christmas in Wales, Susan Stamberg's Holiday Relish, and David Sedaris, Sandaland Diary, and Susan Messer Hanukkah Story. So, and for those of you who don't know me, I'm a prose writer, not a poet. And I always divide this in two parts. And usually Charlie Newman is around to read the first part, but he's not here today. So Deborah Edelman is going to read the first part of this, and then I'll read the second.
I was wondering if you were going to do a duet.
Yes, it's got to be a duet.
Yeah, I don't think I can quite match Charlie's gravelly voice, but part one. Thank you, Susan, for giving me the chance to read with you this year. Song sheets. The family is gathered in the living room to light the candles for the first night of Hanukkah. There's the father and the mother, uncles and aunties, cousins galore, the three young sisters who live in the house. The menorah is silver and old wax residue dots its surface. The home is warm, the furniture is modest and comfortable. The air is heavy with latke smells. The mother is in charge and she lights the candles and leads the prayers. 3 verses for the first night of Hanukkah. She turns to their little box of a record player and lowers the needle onto the record of scratchy old Hanukkah songs. She passes out the song sheets. Why does everyone groan? They feel it is their job to resist the mother and the tradition she wishes to pass on. They groan every year. So why does the mother persist with the song sheets and the records? No one knows the answer, but still she passes them out and still they groan. And in the meantime, the songs work their way into the brain circuitry of the children. They will never forget the songs. They will know every tune and every word, both in English and Hebrew. Oh, perhaps a few words are lost, but only a few. Eventually, the daughters of this family grow up and move away. All the children become adults. The adults become old. One Hanukkah night, the mother calls her daughter. It is the first night of Hanukkah, and the daughter is alone in her little house. She doesn't have Jewish friends, and she doesn't celebrate Hanukkah or any other Jewish holiday. The mother is on one phone extension, and the father is on the other. The three make small talk, deliver news of this one or that one, and then the mother says she wants to sing Hanukkah songs. The daughter feels the reflexive recoil, the obligatory groan. She pictures the song sheets on their stained and yellowed paper with their cracked and curling edges. When the mother starts the first song in her husky Yiddish voice, and the father hums along in his off-key way, the daughter sits in her little house with her lips pressed together. Soon something opens in her. Soon she sings with great feeling, and soon she realizes, gripping the telephone and singing into the small black mouthpiece, the tears are flowing down her cheeks and into her mouth, salty and sad. Many years later, after the mother has died, this daughter finds the song sheets in a file labeled Hanukkah songs. The song sheets have yellowed even more. Everything about them is old, especially the blurry purple ink of the old-fashioned copying machine her mother has used to print them.
Thank you. Thank you. That was beautiful. Part 2, latkes. The family always has, wrong glasses. The family always has latkes at least once during Hanukkah, usually on the first night of the holiday, the most special. Year after year, the daughter has watched the mother grate the potato and onion on the metal grater into the wooden bowl. 1, 2, 3, the mother is fast. She can grate 5 pounds of raw potatoes in minutes. It is the frying that is endless and pernicious. Oil spattering, smoky flare-ups, odors. Still, the latkes are delicious, and the family eats them with sour cream. The latkes are hot, the sour cream is cool. The latkes are crisp, the sour cream is smooth. The latkes are salty, the sour cream is tangy. Thus, the girl acquires a taste and appreciation for contrast. Many years later, after the girl has grown up and moved away, she comes back to her parents' house for a visit. It is Hanukkah, and the family will go to celebrate at the mother's sister's house. Because latkes take so much time and effort to fry, each family attending the party is asked to bring a batch to place on the communal table. In the girl's family, something has gone wrong, and they have started the latke frying too late. They need to dress for the party, they need to fry the latkes, and they need to leave for the party, all at the same time. The girl is at a stage in her life when she needs to impress her family with her flamboyance and worldliness. So she has brought along a special outfit for the party: jersey knickers, a black Angora sweater, and a magenta feather boa. The problem is that when one fries latkes, the oily, oniony smell permeates everything: house, clothes, hair, hands. The girl does not want her new clothes to smell like latkes, especially not the boa. The mother is irritated, not at her daughter, but at the time-bind that she says with disgust, "We're all going to smell like latkes." The girl feels torn between the duty to produce latkes and the need to dress, to present the sophisticated image to her family. The father, ready to leave an hour ago, used to living with a household of women, is unconcerned about the smell of latkes, and he steps up to the stove. "Go get dressed," he says to the girl and her mother. "I'll fry the latkes." The sight of her father, in his wool jacket and tie, standing by the sputtering frying pan, spatula in hand, so stalwart and ready, brings her to tears. Here is a man she will always be able to depend on. Here is a man who understands. Many years later, after both the mother and the father have died, the daughter still celebrates Hanukkah. She is married, she has her own home, she has a daughter. The daughter hates the song sheets. She doesn't like latkes, but the husband is fearless. He gets out every skillet in the house. He turns all the burners on high. He pours the oil into the skillets, flicks water off his fingertips to make sure it is hot enough. He opens all the doors and windows, even if it's 50 below wind chill. He doesn't care about his clothes. He doesn't fret about how they'll clean the pans or dispose of the oil after frying. He isn't bothered by the smell. He knows that all these problems will be solved. He knows that crispy latkes require high heat, and high heat is what he will give them. The wife stands back and watches, anxious about the spatters, about the pans, about the stovetop and the walls, about the daughter who won't even take a bite. She runs around the house, closing the doors of their bedrooms, hoping to keep out the smell. And when she is finished with all of that, she watches this spectacle. Her fearless husband, armed only with a spatula, negotiating the oily haze that sputters off the latkes.
But who washes the pots?
We take turns. Thank you. Thanks so much for indulging me.
Thank you, Susan.
Yeah.
Who shall be next? It's really nice to carry on that tradition.
Thank you.
Leonard, how about you?
Sounds like a winner to me. Evening, everybody. Couple of things for you, not quite written today, but close to it. Mary Carol Hackett out in Virginia ran a 30-30 back in November for poets, for people who aren't novelists during National Novel Writing Month. And these are from that period. Heads, things will change. In the photograph, a century and more old, all the gray buildings, sidewalks, and streets. Black clad, the women in long skirts and fitted jackets, the men in suits, all of them hatted. Executives, bankers, traders, their staffs, all focused on business, single pathed as streetcars and hansoms. The street cleaner steps aside to let them pass, steps back to avoid the vehicles. The only one undisguised in the crowds, all in white, the only one so totally unseen. Years have passed since the shutter opened on that scene. The coin still spins in the air. And from a black and white photo of a cafe in Paris after the Second World War. The cafe is tiny, so the chairs are drawn close, giving more space to what will still be a crowded dance floor. When she takes the empty spot, smoothing her skirt, the back of her hand brushes the stranger's thigh. At the moment she crosses her right leg to the left, he does the opposite, not looking. So the base of his calf rests most briefly on the top of her foot. This is how the path runs. The things that lead from chances to choices, 2 roads from here. If neither blushes, neither makes a sound, a road will split again by closing time. He to his empty house and she to her silent apartment. Or they might let first words and glances lead to a Madison, a 2-step, a single destination. Wait, watch. One will happen in 2 heartbeats, the other 2 in 1. Thank you.
Nina, I just want to jump in and say hello to all our friends out in YouTube land. For those who are listening on YouTube, we've got a good number of people out there right now. There's over 20 right now live viewers. And for those who haven't been here before, we're actually doing this on Zoom and live streaming over to YouTube. So for those of you who are putting little comments into the YouTube chat, those will be available to all the readers when we load the video up to YouTube. So you'll be able to read all the comments from folks. And just a reminder to everybody who's on YouTube, I put in their links to our featured readers, Kathleen Rooney and Dora Malech's, where to find some of their books. So that's also in the chat. And that's it for the little commercial. Nina.
Well, maybe I could add to the commercial by saying that next month, I'm excited that we're going to have Kevin Koval and Idris Goodwin joining us. They are some of the earliest. Kevin was a founder of Louder Than a Bomb and Young Chicago Authors, and Idris was part of that too, and the Breakbeat Poets anthology, and not only poets, but educators. And you're not going to want to miss that. That's the second Monday of the month in January. We're always here on the second Monday of the month, so I hope you'll join us. I want to do it, just double check. Kurt, well, first, Deborah, are you reading your own stuff tonight as well? Okay, yes. And Kurt, are you just about ready?
I can go, yeah.
And we still have Gabriella.
And we still have Gabriella, is it? Okay, well, Kurt, give it to us.
All right. Thanks, Nina.
So wait, just for those of you who don't know, this is our man behind the curtain. He's the one who put together that incredible video in the beginning and allows us to do so much more than we've been able to do in person. So we can give him a quick
Wait till it's done, friends. You don't need to. This has been fun. I've had a long-standing entanglement between media and poetry, and not like I was looking forward to the shutdown, but since it's on, doing things like this has kind of been interesting to see people who are poets come back into what is I regard kind of as my creative and professional space. So thank you guys for letting me be part of this. And now we got something going on. I think that's a good symbiosis. I have one piece, and contrary to my usual habits, it's all on one page. You can't see it maybe, but it's short. It isn't. A lot of people have to do things by form. I don't, but there's a form in it anyway. I don't care. I'll just shut up. The piece is called "I Liked You Better Drunk." I liked you better drunk, and it's interesting putting this on tonight because there are other people who are teachers and students in this mix tonight. I had a few people who were themselves teachers, but I came to poetry sort of after the fact, after an engineering and design education. So it wasn't an official teacher, but this is kind of about someone who presumed they were. Of all the men who called themselves my father, you were the only one who wasn't. Ever. I liked you better drunk. When you were free and unprescribed, even wrong. I could deal with your wrong, and always did. I sidestepped your prejudices. It was fun. They made you a plainer and uncensored man, a lovely man. No forethought how to be that way, just lovely and bare. Then you changed. That's where it ended. You became theatrical and easier, a tragic hero. But I still saw the design in you. You prove, you exemplify, you demonstrate. Like I said, theater, dry theater. But as others have said, your lips were moving. That's how I uncovered the real tragedy. I liked you better honest. Honest me and honest you. Your old demons called everyone out to play, and we did. Scream singing, potential, and delicious chaos. Mercy and flaw were true with you, dangling around you, loyal, flamboyant, unprescribed and raw, free of preparation. They drummed a march to forswear fear and just live. And so I did. And I thanked you. But you never heard me. Your dogma's lips kept moving too, drowning me out. I never drank like you, may never, could have but won't. Instead, I walked like a 13th man, someone who knew he shouldn't stick around. The demons, they stayed behind. And like any mortally blind, and like anybody mortally bound to their own righteousness, so did you.
Mm. Well, thank you, Kurt. Very nice. Who should we have go next? Deborah, you want to read for us? And then we'll end up with Gabriella.
All right, thank you. I'm glad to be here. I was reading poetry for a while, and then I got to the bottom of my new batch of poems, and I switched over to prose last time, and I'm going to continue with prose, the same memoir project. I'm just having some fun writing about my life, and was directed by Michelle Morano to a memoir that is written in past tense, present tense, first person, second person, third person, as a way of bringing all the complicated strands of one life together. So the one I read last month was a first person, and this one I'm writing about myself in the third person, which has been kind of a fun experience. It's called Dream. In the dream, she sits on a grassy hill in Kiev, overlooking the Dnieper. 10 years have passed since she visited on a student tour, gazing down the same broad slope that has just appeared in her dream, an open vista of wide, lazy river cutting through the city her grandmother had fled long ago after another pogrom. 10 years have passed, and she was only there once, but there is no mistaking the location of her dream, Kiev. The dream invokes in her the same wonder she felt actually standing there on the hill in 1978, trying to imagine Grammy Esther as a child, making her way through the city, speaking a language she did not pass on to her children or grandchildren. The breathtaking expanse before her, lush, green, punctuated by the onion-shaped domes of Orthodox churches in all directions. Those churches, ornate, Eastern, but so Christian. What streets did Esther walk down when her mama sent her out for bread? Was she allowed to go to school? Esther didn't talk about having grown up in Kiev, had said nothing that would help her granddaughter understand what she was now looking at, or in what way it was part of her heritage. Was she looking at anything in 1978 that Esther might still recognize? The scene before her provided no clues. The only thing that was apparent was how half a century of Soviet industry had changed and not changed the view from this hill. Smokestacks, churches, river. She had sent Esther a postcard. Grammy, I am in your city. And she had written the same sentence in Russian. Babushka, я в твоем городе, realizing that she didn't even know if Esther's native language was Yiddish or Russian. She knew the postcard might never arrive or might take half a year to cross all those Cold War borders, and she would be home first. But she had sent it anyhow. When she did get back home later that year, Esther cried when she heard her granddaughter speak to her in newly acquired Russian, a language Esther had never used again once she left. But this is not where her dream goes. In her dream, she is sitting on the hill, completely enchanted by the view. It is so gorgeous it brings joy and actual warmth right to the middle of her chest, heartfelt joy in the middle of her sleep. Slightly down the hill, she has a group of students waiting for her to conduct class, but she has nothing prepared, and in any case, the view is so peaceful and lovely that her students can't take their eyes from it and look down away from her to the river, taking only furtive peeks uphill towards her, their unprepared teacher, who has nothing to offer them, certainly nothing that would eclipse what the hill and the river are telling them. She looks away from the reluctant group, and when she looks back at them, instead of her students, she is looking at a field of boiled potatoes, overcooked in the way that makes the peel separate from the flesh, which is falling apart into unappetizing pieces. When she tells her friends about the dream, the image of a group of students turning into a field of boiled potatoes makes them laugh. They don't understand that the dream did not feel funny. It was uncomfortable and disconcerting, this unexpected and seemingly unconnected mixing of her new role as college teacher with the one visit she had made as a student to her grandmother's original home. The shift from the joy that the beautiful landscape had provoked in her to the muteness and inability to connect to those who she was entrusted to teach. In this way, she thought, the dream was about knowing and not knowing, about the way the past, even hidden and obscure, tries to intrude on the present. It was about not having words because the language had not been passed on to you. It was about not having enough knowledge to look at real life, have it stare you in the face and understand what you are seeing. It was about the lost opportunity to learn from Esther about what childhood experiences, the utter brutality of which she would only learn about decades later from her aunt, had made Esther into the fearful, easily bullied, easily suburbanizing grandmother she had known, who had taken all her earliest experiences as a young Jewish girl in Kiev at the beginning of the 20th century and turned them into impenetrable silence. She has made the journey from student to teacher, something she has wanted to do for a long time, and yet wonders if she will ever be prepared for the new role. Esther isn't alive anymore when she has this dream, and she can't imagine that Esther, who had so much hidden inside of her that she never talked about or didn't have the words for, would have any inkling of how her own past was trying to filter its way into her granddaughter's brain in another time, on another continent, in another language. Thank you.
Thank you.
A whole lot to me just because of having been there and overlooking the Dnieper, and also having gone to the site of Babi Yar, which was where the massacre of the Jews took place during World War II. There was a smokestack not very far away. I don't know if you had a chance to see it, Deb, but I was really glad to be able to go to my my elder's home.
Yeah.
We have one more poet in the open mic, and then we're on our way. Gabriella Fee, thanks for being here with us.
Hi, thank you so much for having me. I'm so grateful to hear all of your wonderful poems. I'm going to read 3 pieces. If I can just pull up the right document. Here we go. This first one was written in advance of last month's election in response to the pervasive sense of dread that for quite a while made it difficult to write. On the poem, I cannot write. What is the appropriate posture? One sits in a window, pouring tea. One watches a worm emerging or a leaf detaching from a tree. One watches what one says, dwells on it too long. One monitors a fibrous mass, benign, but still one wonders, over and under eats. Writes, sorry for the late reply, time got away from me while I was in the window watching leaves become more red than green. One longs for something more direct, a fist, a fire, a glass-breaking high sea that goes on until one's throat is a scorched pine, a frayed wire. One watches a junco balance on one foot, watches a show about 19th century gardens, watches the neighbor play red light, green light with his kids. One reads unlivable heat for billions, but one is not billions and watches the microwave plate turn one's dinner round and round. To watch, as in to do as a timepiece does, is to attend a certain passing, keep a certain count, eye out for what is said to be happening, is about to happen, something one's body already knows. One's body has wound itself up, sounds its dread at every sawed-off muffler ripping down the street. Between heartbeats, on a quiet night, one can almost hear it ticking. This next one is called Don't Kill Yourself, and it's after a poem by the same name by Carlos Drummond de Andrade. Dawn drive to Gloucester with a cup of coffee. Brief rain rinsing the sky's reds. A skiff's engine uttering something into the harbor. Oil slick, the color of a shell's inside. Tat, 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 the day says, nudging its wet muzzle into your hand. Why reject this good company because you cannot have the specific love you want? Desiring your death in broad daylight is like being touched under the dinner table by an odious stranger. The humpbacks have left the warm Antilles with their fresh calves. They have pointed their long faces north towards Stellwagen Bank, where green shelves of algae bloom for them. Gabriella, something may be waiting for you too. And this last one is called Sonogram. Say I put mouth to eye to ear. Tell eye a picture. Show ear a story so bright it blinks. Say I see in sound what you someday will be. Say I wave in sound wave as a hand drags through still water. Hello, little song. Glad to hear you. The case of bulbs your mom brought back from Blumenmarkt fares not so well as you. She must have mulched this time, Tulip. You, her one green thumb, know her as I can never, though I pull the hair from her brush, read her paper on Lacan. In the field of the unconscious, an ear's the only orifice that cannot close. Free her feet from tangled blankets. I know her as one knows an asterism, a 3-star synecdoche. Starling, we make a sweet triangle, though you in instar are unmine. You'll love her as I do, and she you. Thank you.
Well, was it the ear is the only orifice that doesn't close?
The ear is the only orifice that cannot close, but that's not me, that's Lacan, so I won't take credit for that.
And Lacan and unconscious, I just love that. And that's it for the open mic. And now we look forward to readings by Kathleen Rooney and Dora Malech. And but before that, we have our entr'acte. Is that how it's pronounced? Kurt, do you think?
No.
No, we did it already. We did it already.
Oh, I thought
that intro video ran already, my friend. So it's
video.
and I owe a shout out, an apology to Kathleen, because I think she was heralded as the encore poet tonight when she really should be a co-feature. So there we go. What happened happened. It's in the video. But you know,
Yeah.
the entr'acte would be you, Nina, and you, Bill, doing the introductions, I think. Tell us about our features tonight.
You know, you just said Bill, which is
Oh, Bill, right.
You meant
Al.
Al, but that's okay. But I want to thank all the open micers. What a great open mic. So thanks for being here tonight.
yeah, just our regulars and these new voices that are just. I hope you'll come back and know the invitation is there. And by the way, if you want to keep track of the series, join or like us at, it's just Traveling Molly's.
On Facebook, yeah.
Yeah. So join us and you'll be able to hear about all of the things that we're doing and sign up for the open mic and all of that. Also, as I start to, as you get to hear tonight's features, and you can find links to their websites or publishers or whatever, just know that because we can't pass the hat over virtually, what you can do is buy their books. These are two fine writers with, with books that you may really want to have on your shelves. So do check those out. I've tried to figure out how many pennies poets get for each word or for the hours that they spend writing them. And it's not nearly enough, as you may well imagine. But now we're going to get all of the specialness of Kathleen and Dora. So we're going to start with Kathleen Rooney, who is the founding editor of Rose Metal Press. And that's how many years old now? Like 12 years, 10 years?
14 years.
14, geez, I didn't even want to guess it was that long because it seemed impossible. She's a founding member of Poems While You Wait. Her recent books include Lillian Boxfish Takes a Walk and The Listening Room, a novel of Georgette and Lulu Magritte. Her World War I novel, Sharon and Major Whittlesey, was published by Penguin in August, and her criticism appears in the New York Times, the Poetry Foundation website, the Chicago Tribune, and elsewhere. Nothing but the best here at Traveling Molly's. She lives in Chicago. She teaches at DePaul, and she's a longtime friend of Woman Made Gallery's literary series. Kathleen Rooney, looking forward to her. You've been writing.
Thanks so much. Thanks so much to Nina and to Al and to Kurt. And yeah, this is my first time reading in Traveling Molly, so it's an honor to be here. And the open mic was fantastic. And I'm very much looking forward, Dora, to hearing your poems as well. And I'm going to read 5 newish poems. I hadn't really been writing as much poetry outside of Poems While You Wait, the typewriter poetry that I do with a bunch of Chicago poets. And then Kim Southwick, who's great, I have to give credit where it's due. She runs the literary magazine Gigantic Sequins, which everyone should check out. And she put together a National Poetry Writing Month group and invited me. And that kind of got me back this year into writing poetry for myself, as opposed to for strangers on demand for $5, which is what Poems While You Wait does. So these are some of the newest poems I have from this year, and it's an honor to have this forum to share them with people. This one's called The Production and Consumption of Goods and Services. The etymology of economy lies in household management, thrift. I'm not into real estate fantasies, but I can see the appeal of a cottage with a slate roof, copper gutters, and period shutters, a place to shut in, shut out, shut down. Shut up, my comeback to Mammonites demanding blood sacrifice to the death cult. Why should I die for the economy when he would never do the same for me? Please respect others and only take what you need. The rule on complimentary tampons and pads in the bathrooms is basically my plan for the entire economy. The tragedy of waste, the waste of tragedy. Can material loss yield spiritual gain? Probably so, but not automatically. What would you make if you didn't have to make money? I don't want to go back to business as usual. I want to give business as usual the business. France last executed somebody by guillotine in 1977. Freeze and put your hand where I can see it. I said that to the invisible hand of the market. Gotta stay hydrated. This one is about birthdays, and it's called To Celebrate the Anniversary of Someone's Birth. At first, birthdays were reserved for kings and saints, but it's rainbow sprinkles and face painting for everybody these days. The best way to avoid having your birthday ruined is to avoid having any expectations for your birthday. Without the delineation of years, time would become an expanse of open water, horizonless, shark-filled, one of my biggest fears. A rush of orange crush that sparkle on the tongue and make a wish shouted at the top of tiny lungs are a couple of things I recall. Balloons and streamers and the first piece of cake, conical hats with elastic chin straps. Is a birthday party an instance of what Durkheim meant by collective effervescence, profane tasks cast away for a sacred second? Whence my ambivalence about birth as metaphor, birth for entities not brought forth from a womb. Happy birthday to you is a bit of a dirge. It's said that the party hat may originate with a dunce cap, an abrogation of social norms, not punishment in school, but foolish cavorting, worn for the pinning of tails on donkeys, the tossing of eggs, sported for a sack race. Don't say A Star is Born unless you're talking about the movie. Don't tell a woman her books are her babies. For my next birthday, please remember that I love getting mail. You could send me a funny card and maybe a package full of money, or a necklace made of lapis lazuli, believed by the ancients to ward off melancholy. What an ego boost to have one's birthday suit evaluated by another person as cute. Today is the oldest you've ever been and the youngest you'll ever be again. Supposedly Eleanor Roosevelt said that. I wouldn't say I have a problem with mortality. If anything, I tend to gravitate toward the time worn, a neighborhood where the roots of the trees crack the sidewalks. Birthdays are about pleasure, excess, and decadence. But pleasure is painful because memento mori, because hoary cliche, we're not getting any younger. The candles gutter, the candles go out. Better to blow them dark yourself. Birthdays are okay, but what about death days? Of the 365 we cycle through annually, on one of them, we'll cease to be alive. Should the hour of arrival be more of a factor? Should some of us have birth nights? Mayonnaise is my favorite secret ingredient for a cake, birthday or otherwise. There's no predicting the days of greatest significance. Best to simply be vigilant. Like my friend Beth said, not even trying to be wise. In my life, the piñatas come around pretty quick. I just swing at them with my stick. That was my friend Beth Schultes, who's like an accidental genius. She just talks like that. This one's called Epistolary. Our forebears wrote hundreds of letters per year, staring into the fire, searching for the right word, a pile of correspondence atop their desks. My parents taught me to send paper thank you notes. I grew up in the suburbs, in the 90s, in the global north, the final descent of carbon paper, white out. During the first Iraq War, my 5th grade class wrote letters to soldiers. I sent weekly notes with cotton socks and chocolate snacks that I'm pretty sure my pen pal mocked. He would rather I'd sent something better, like porn. Certain return addresses feel like pop rocks in my heart. You can even enclose pop rocks in a letter if you want. I just sent my friend a postcard of a place called Lonesome Lake. I've never been. I bought it in a thrift shop. Knight writes with so much black ink that it's hard to read. Sticking international postage on an airmail letter. How long before the nations are no longer? Probably all modern technology is at least a little bad. No special device is required to receive a letter. In a way, we all live on Lonesome Lake now. That magic, though, when the envelope drops into the blue mouth of the mailbox. And then I don't know if anybody else likes smells or like fragrance, but I love it. So I don't know, I love perfume. And so if you love it, like talk to me after or whatever, drop me a line because I could go out all day, but I won't. Instead, I'll just read this poem about it. because I love smells. And I feel like in the pandemic when we can't go anywhere, I've really been like traveling on smells. The special organ of breathing and smelling. A tweak on the nose, a tweak of the spirit. If you've got it, I'll sniff it, any and all of it. Figs, pigs, buttered toast, compost, tallow, alley behind a restaurant, kitten yawns, mown lawns, existential pains, after it rains, trouble, bubblegum, freedom. Palmitic acid is the key to library scent. I would pay through the nose for a whiff of ambergris or the musk from the glands of an actual civet. Whenever I lose my sense of smell, I get a sensation of not quite living within the first person. Impossible to want anyone who doesn't smell good or well. According to Brian Eno, the secret of a good perfume is that at the very middle, at the center of it, is a big stink. Because your nose is your most primitive sense. It's what wakes you up. It's what tells you there's a fire in the forest. It alerts you if there's a house burning down next door. Once you're awake, then you can put in all the pretty smells, but not before. Odor of the body, odor of the soul. Supposedly, Napoleon wrote to Josephine upon concluding the Italian campaign, "I'm coming home in 3 days. Don't bathe." Remember when phones could ring off the hook? Remember when phones had hooks? A comic book look, a visual sound effect. You can also draw lines to indicate smells. Rocket ships have nose cones, but pity them, for they cannot smell. A lack of smell, a birth in hell. Has the stable world vaporized, or did it ever exist? Lucky for me, I have a keen nose for absurdity. We don't have robust vocabularies for smells, so we borrow other images. Lemon zest smells like the squeak of a rusty door hinge. Vanilla, like the treetop trill of a sparrow. Cigarette smoke is a very narrow smell. Cinnamon smells like the brightest red. Like Basho said, the temple bell stops, but the sound keeps coming out of the flowers. And then, thank you. And then one more, last one. And if you're curious, I was nosy and want to know what people's poems look like. Like Dora, I love that you put Jalen's poem in the chat because I loved seeing that it was in couplets. So these are like, I don't know if you can see, they're kind of like prose poems. And so they're in like sentences, stanza graphs. So this is the last one. So thank you again so much. This is a really lovely way to spend a Monday evening. The point in time or space at which something originates. Don't picture the bottom of the hill. Imagine the top. The effervescent thrill of making a start. That little psht moment when you open up a pop. Whence the superfluity of the expression, a new beginning, the insistence of the speaker, a pep talk to the self. In the beginning, God created the heaven and the earth was without form and void, and darkness was upon the face of the deep, and the Spirit of God moved upon the face of the waters. As books go, the Bible is pretty uneven, but what a beginning. New money, new car, new baby, new wife, waking up a new person, starting a new life. Tonight, it's a new moon. As the moon moves between the earth and the sun, the far side of the lunar surface will be illuminated, but no one on earth will see anything of it. In The Nature of Things, in 45 BCE, Lucretius wrote, "All life is a struggle in the dark." Go around saying things like that and you'll literally never be wrong. To be alive is to feel as though we all arrived late and missed the beginning of the movie. The beginning of the book, the beginning of the month. It was clear from the beginning that we'd never win. Nobody remembers the beginning of the feud. When the moon is new, the sky is extra dark, like the best kind of chocolate, slivered only by the skinniest crescent. New Orleans, New Zealand, New Mexico, New England, pure unoriginality or an attempt to improve reality, to claim some of the traits of home, only better. New America, anyone? Sorry to say, it takes more than 21 days to form a new habit. That's just a myth that became accepted as fact. Then again, with a bad behavior, 1 or 2 repetitions is probably enough when it comes to doing drugs or eating a donut. Could the young but realize how soon they will become mere walking bundles of habits, They would give more heed to their conduct while in a plastic state. So said William James. A gallant habit to cultivate is using less plastic. People like to conceive of narrative as an arc, but arcs are retrospective, not reflective of incidents as they were happening. Experientially speaking, it's a perpetual present. Can beginner's luck apply moment to moment? Not sure, but I hope so. I don't like the Beatles, but Tomorrow Never Knows is a good song. Play the game existence to the end, pause, of the beginning. Whoa. Thank you.
I do have a question for you, Kathleen. If there's any of your books that you would most recommend the beginning reader of Kathleen Rooney, which would you recommend?
I feel like starting with Lillian Boxfish Takes a Walk is good entry-level material. I feel like that'll pull you in.
All right. And actually, we didn't mention that Kathleen has collaborated with Elisa, is it?
Yeah, Elisa Gabbert. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And see, if you're into collaboration, you may want to check that out.
Thank you.
Well, so great to have you. Great to hear you writing poetry again. And everyone, give her a hand. And now, Dora, are you ready? All right, she is nodding her head. I really became attracted to Dora's writing after she won one of the big money prizes from the Poetry Foundation. And really, that's what connected me to you. And we've had these little interchanges on social media, and I'm just so thrilled that being virtual has allowed us to have you here with us tonight. Dora's most recent full-length book of poetry is Flourish, published by Carnegie Mellon University Press earlier this year. Her poems have appeared in the New Yorker, Poetry, the Best American Poetry, and numerous other publications. Her chapbook, Time Trying, was just published by Tupelo Press in its 4 quartets Poetry in the Pandemic anthology. Looking forward to hearing something from them, and I actually just read one of them. She lives in Baltimore, where she is an assistant professor. I'm sorry, I almost read assassin professor, but no, assistant professor in the writing seminars at Johns Hopkins University. Dora, I can't wait to hear you.
Thank you so much. Thank you for having me, and hopefully I won't assassinate anyone with this reading. Just assist. Kathleen, that was so wonderful. I'm a fan of your work and a big fan of Rose Metal Press, and so this was really, really wonderful to read with you and all of the readers before. Just so many moving and funny and provoking poems. So thank you. This was. I know I shouldn't be reading text messages coming in, but a friend of mine who was she wrote and said this reading is oddly comforting, which is not to say there aren't serious things happening in all of these poems, but I kind of agreed with that. I thought there's just a good really warm vibe to this whole event. So thank you all, Al and Nina and Kurt and everyone who read. I'm actually going to start sort of taking inspiration from Susan and Deb and Nina just mentioning Kathleen's collaborations. I've been collaborating with a poet who you just heard in the open mic, Gabriella Fee, on some translations of the Italian poet Giovanna Cristina Vivinetto. And so we thought we might start the reading, kind of segue in by reading 3 of those translations, and each of them are in 2 sections. And so I'll just briefly say about Giovanna Cristina Vivinetto. She was born in Sicily in 1994, and she's the author of 2 books of poems. Her first book of poems, Dolore Minimo, which means minimal pain, published in 2018, is the first collection of Italian poetry to address the subject of transgender identity. And she's a really amazing, just a beautiful poet. And we've been, I think we've been having a very good time translating her poems. So Gabriella, if you would rejoin me to read some of these. And just for a second, let me make sure I have the document pulled up so I don't panic when you start reading.
Thank you, Dora.
Okay, I've got them pulled up now.
Great. The hands were the first loss. The innocent touch left me, touch that had explored things, discovered them in the manner of a child, shaped them. They were hands that didn't know retreat, 12-year-old child's hands that tend to a cone of light, that don't yet know how to join in prayer. Fathomless hands, like lakes in which no one would come looking. Silent hands, like ancient caskets, closed, clean hands.
The hands were the first discovery. My touch became an adult's touch, which knows exactly where to land. The ample, concave hands of a mother who arrives at the threshold and waits. Hands of cherry wood and blossom, hands reborn. Hands that know how to close around the exact consistency of nothing.
The light was the second loss. Affliction took away the sight of fields dazzled by sun, the burnt and living plot, Sicilian coastline of my 13 years. I spent those years between lines of clothes devoured by sunlight and crumbling terracotta pots where stems of basil and lavender climbed toward the line of the sky, almost reaching to touch it. Light was everything.
The light was the second discovery, not the light that ignites the terraces and weathers the lines of the coast, but the light of houses at dusk, light that mixes with shadow, that sifts through the lace of interlocking branches, that lifts after a storm, after an illness. I mastered the undiluted light of pure bodies, of perennial springs whose source no one knows.
Forgiveness was the third loss. I wanted to excuse myself for the tone I took to your incomprehension. How rare my kindness at 14 when you spoke to me with ignorance. But the fault was no one's, not yours when you pointed to my body and said to be careful, that it wouldn't be easy. Not mine when I failed to forgive your mother reach between skin and nerves to root out uncertainties, doubts I did not yet have.
Forgiveness was the third discovery. When I was big enough to understand what it meant to be a mother, a pardon swelled and overcame me. For you, for other women, children like me, and for myself. I had held the red thread of childhood, and from one day to the next, held it no longer. Thank you. Thank you, Gabriella.
Thank you, Dora.
So I, taking inspiration from others who have read newer or new-ish work, I'd like to continue along with those new translations, reading some newish poems. And Nina mentioned this anthology, 4 quartets, Poetry in the Pandemic. And this is basically an anthology that consists of 16 chapbook length folios of poetry. And I'm really happy to be part of it. And I was happy to have somewhere to channel my attention in this strange year. So I'll read just, I think, 2 poems from this. The first one is called How to Make It. All my friends are now at a distance, overwhelmed with work and world and care, injustice, filled with fear of bills and illness, running scared, though going nowhere, and so, of course, taking on more chores by other names. Some contorting toward the E chord on their new mail order ukulele fretboards. Others wielding hooks and needles to pull hats and scarves from skeins of yarn through spring and into summer, or coddling green fleets of cotyledons to life in hope of herbs and flowers, yes, but also just to tend some simpler lives writ bright in potting soil. And one with palms planted, easing her knees up her shaking arm toward side crow pose. Another shaking shots and ice and adding teeny or Rita to each concoction's end. And another beating cream of tartar into egg whites aspiring to alpine range as part 1 of step 2 of 9 in a 13 ingredient recipe to bake the perfect homemade yodel cake. Well, elsewhere, behind my own closed door, I restart the video of Yodel 101 with yodeler Wiley Gustafsson, who makes a song out of the place we break over and over again. What luck each time he asks me to warm up with a dejected sigh. That's step 1 to yodeling. Step 1 to a lot of things this year. Torah study. And this starts with a quote from the New York Times from March 9th, 2020. At more than one synagogue, congregants received an email this week asking them to no longer kiss the Torah scroll in reverence. Sweet skeptic, non-believer, for whom I never wrote a vow, not wanting to fuss and press at the us of us, not wanting to conscript and constrict into some narrow stripe of service. Years into this, I found the words and want to recommit as such. I don't believe that it's too much to ask. Here goes. My atheist, may I die some distant day, your holy book, your sacred text, ancient, full of poetry, and often kissed. So I'm going to, maybe I'll move around a little bit and read some poems from Flourish, which came out earlier this year at the end of February, right before everything locked down. So I'm very grateful to be able to be in this virtual space with people. This is a poem. It isn't exactly a Hanukkah poem, but since the Hanukkah piece was read earlier, this is about flames, so that's kind of close. Little offer. For their kind, not a moment's doubt. Unwavering devotees, they never hesitate for lack of ideology. I know I'm neither first nor last of my kind to admire the way they aim at radiance and take for their last pyre the first open flame. A shadow in shadows at their right, I am as always paid no mind as I illuminate nothing. The wordless watchword must closer, closer, hum from the heavy place in their weightless bodies. The tripped alarm silenced only as the scales fall singed from their whole selves. I'll wipe again their dust and ash en masse from sills and shelves. Misguided still means guided somewhere, still means. Great light, I'll trade you all my lofty thoughts, never aloft, and bright ideas, always unlit, and credos, edicts, theorems, tired metaphors of moths to flames for my pair of wings on fire. And so we're only a couple days away from the solstice. This poem is a poem that I wrote. It mentions the solstice briefly, so I'll sort of never forget that I wrote it at this exact time of year, and has that association to me now. To the you of 10 years ago now. Never fear. I know the difference between arteries and ardor, arbor and treed, my bower and a weak need, a harbor where one might moor tonight and a port worth the oar's effort to come ashore for, a bit part and the serpent's gravid apple. I won't flatter myself first or lasting, or presume to fast and faint a martyr, making mockery of sacrifice, fatten for some sweet slaughter. I must believe that I'm not on your mind. On your body? Sure. That said, your body has a few ideas so bright that we might meet some night and render a dark room light as the last day before the world ends, that doom that was supposed to dawn today, but by now, hours worn on and in, we know there's no such luxury as fine as that finality for now. For now, at least, I'll have to kiss apocalypse goodbye, resign myself to this more mundane pain, the solace of the solstice, year's earliest sunset and its longest night. I try to catch that fade of color without a flash. Both tries prove terrible. The horizon smudges up against the sky's blur like a child's heavy-handed landscape and inept erasure. They'll have to do. The pictures that I have of you will never do you justice either. Neither a camera's snap nor some synaptic crackle long elapsed can come remotely close to holding you. How else would you have it? You need never fear. I need you, but I only need you where you are, there, never far, never near. And so I'm going to jump forward a little bit here in the book. I'm sure a lot of us have been in close proximity with no one but our neighbors lately. So this is called Neighborhood Watch. My back porch looks out on an alley into which a neighbor's consumptive sump pump coughs violently and sporadically at all hours. Sometimes I pretend the alley's leaves and litter stand in for Pharaoh's army, rendering the effluence a dramatic player in a biblical tableau. Sometimes I fancy the flow some misguided New Age appropriation, a feng shui fountain, and at the north end of my home, no less, curative, imbuing elemental prosperity, blessing my career and life path area. Sometimes, taking the trash out in the dark quiet of a Monday night, I screech and leap at the sudden gush, my reflexes puppeteering me, B-movie heroine to the drain pipe's poltergeist. I seethe a little as I nod a greeting to my neighbor on the rare occasions when he shuffles past, stepping over his brown-green scum stream as he exits my scene stage left. We engaged in the perfunctory name exchange when I moved in years ago, but in disuse, those hinges between us rusted shut. Mr. Whomever, I can't remember. Perhaps I should consider my stage left as his stage right. And in his theater, the conflict is my music, my laughter, my little dog's loud demands, my penchant for pantslessness and open windows on warm nights. Can I call this a watershed and thus trace thoughts and follow feelings sourceward? Try to imagine his basement. How wet it must be to warrant such round-the-clock diligence. Try to imagine our whole block is one leaky boat and he's the only one bailing, not standoffish as he seems, but just immersed in the thankless, necessary work, only emerging on occasion to take the air and remind himself that we're worth saving, though he's the only one who seems to see the sea. And I will read just two more poems. This one's called Notes Toward a Thank You. Illegible ledger scrawled on the walls of the mind's interior, unseen but seen to, and shaping as a place makes nexus of the prior and the next, its grace suspended in an amber chamber, praises pressed as flowers in chapters of rising action and falling, expressed in the rising and falling of the sleeping chest after endurance. You can have the rest, or ink if we take cardstock manners over mind and think to thank indelible. Excess can be gratitude, as can restraint. I left some pastry on your porch. I left some flowers in a former marinara jar. I don't expect you to keep them forever. I don't expect them to keep. I took a roadside spectrum out of context, ditch lilies whose unfurling says can't help ourselves from blooming, so please help yourselves to us too. This bursting at, as if all else were seams, fields sown to open, reveling in its unraveling. Earlier I felt past try, I felt flow airs, but routine is a root in. I stand by it. Tangled in lines wrapped in the net, votives, motive, meaning now's avowal, and the dough risen too, as if today were the occasion, something still sweeter at its center. And I will read one last short poem, another one of gratitude that's just called Gratitude, to say thank you to everyone for being here with us this evening, especially my fellow readers and the Traveling Mollies organizers. It's a very short poem, Gratitude. Gratitude that one expands, glass less full than effervescent, shook spray making rainbows, rainbows making certain skies promise, promise making and remaking itself imperfectly each day as a note coaxed from the glass's lip, sip or spill to shift the pitch and sing out what is missing. Thank you.
Dora, how beautiful. How beautiful. Thank you so much for being with us. And if people were to buy just one of your books, which would you want them to buy?
Oh gosh. You know, if someone were going to buy one book, I would love for them to buy Flourish. It's the new one. It's dear to my heart right now. So I think I'm biased in favor of whatever's the most recent, but it was a long time in the making, and so I would definitely want them to get that.
Yeah. And I would especially encourage all of you because there are these books that people have worked on for years, and oh my God, they came out at a time when you can't go to AWP to hear them read or anywhere else. So what that means is buy their books. This is their opportunity to shine, both Dora and Kathleen, and actually everybody here tonight. Al, thoughts?
Ditto to all that. Thank you everyone for being here tonight. This was a really, really wonderful reading. And I think it just kind of felt good, as Dora, as you said, one of your friends mentioned. It just felt good. And this is a nice way to begin the holiday season. So I just wish everybody happy holidays, and I guess we'll see you next year, and hopefully by then all our political problems will be settled. And us.
I didn't say that. I do want to say that on the subject of warmth, that after the 2016 election, I found that readings were the one source of that gave me light and a richness of spirit that was some of what got me through, and continues to get me through. And along those lines, thank you for being here. Next month, we will have Kevin Koval and Idris Goodwin, and that's January 11th, right?
You're asking me? I think so.
Sorry.
It's always the second Monday of the month. You'll find Traveling Molly's doing this either online or at the Buzz Cafe in Oak Park, Illinois. But this has been going really well. So thank you everyone for being here tonight. And thank you to all the folks on YouTube who are still there. Some people toughed it through to the end, but we'll post this video, once it's finished, whatever the internet does on YouTube to videos, it'll be posted forever. And so you can invite your friends to see it. It would be at the same address that you received for tonight. So thanks again, everybody.
Thank you. Holidays, stay safe.
Bye.
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 Bye. Thank you all. This was so great.
Yeah, thank you, everyone. It's wonderful.